Okay, we
Good
are.
evening.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to Detroit in Black and White, our Friday evening edition at 8:30, from 8:30 to 9 o'clock. If you're watching, we want you to like, subscribe, and share. Like, subscribe, and share. Here today we have our co-host, Allan Lengel. Hey, Allan.
Hey, how are you?
We also have Jim Nardone, who I guess he's back from his vacation. Hey,
I
Jim.
am. Happy Friday. I'm covered up. Can't you see that I'm
That's
not
an angelic glow. He has an
And-
angelic glow there.
Right, and we have I guess Adolph he's traveling. Hopefully he'll join
He's
us.
trying to join.
Yeah, we got this. We got this. Okay, you got a woman running things.
It's about
A woman should be running the
I'm
country.
good with that.
And maybe a woman will be running the city of Detroit. Women run the world.
Awesome.
But anyway, I'm talking junk.
Very possible. Well, what do you think about that in terms of the mayor, the mayor's role?
Well, my opinion is this. Listen, we've had two female governors. Why not a woman mayor for the city of Detroit? It's not as if it's impossible. I had a woman mayor in Southfield. You had a woman mayor in Pontiac. I mean, it's not impossible. This whole thing about, with the last election, which was week before last, on November the 5th, they're talking about, people didn't vote for VP Harris because of sexism, misogyny, race. I just think it was, and I said this before, listen, I don't think that was the case. I think the case was really, listen, y'all changed positions 90 days before the election, expect for people to go along with it, and people was like, we're not doing it. So getting back to local, because politics is local, and that's very important. I think a female is definitely, I think it's long overdue.
I think it's going to be, it's interesting. The last race, the mayoral race, was the mayor versus Anthony Adams, who either didn't have a lot of money, didn't run a particularly effective campaign, and Duggan was able to just deny a debate. Just said, I'm not debating you, you're talking crazy shit. He was totally dismissive of him. I think what it's going to require is that somebody have an effective campaign and somebody have money. And I think part of it's going to be whoever, potentially, look, if somebody like Dan Gilbert or whoever else in the city, Gary Torgo or whoever, decides to pick somebody and they have the funds to advertise on TV and radio, I think they're going to have a distinct advantage. If it happens to be whoever it is.
Now, let me say this. Now, right now it's early. We have it's rumored that we know Santil Jenkins, Mary Sheffield. Who's the other two guys, right?
Fred Dorhall and some businessman on the west side.
Yeah. Okay. So you have these four people. Hey, Eric Brown has joined us. We don't know who else is going to join this race, though. We don't know if it's going to be another woman or a few women or a few other guys. So it's going to be quite interesting. But as to what sex, I think it's long overdue for a female, though. But it has to be the right female. It has to be. Listen, I should say right female. It has to be the right candidate. Yep. The right candidate to meet the needs of Detroiters. Bottom line.
And we've had Santel Jenkins on. She was really good. She seems like a brilliant lady. But you vote for her because she's a good candidate, not because
she's a woman.
You have to. You can't only be just a good candidate. You have to have an effective campaign, and that's really going to be part of the machinery out there and the boots on the ground and stuff like that. And, when you talk about Kamala Harris, and I don't want to get too deep into it, I think there's so many reasons. People will always want to say it's because of this, it's because of that, it's this issue, it's because she did this, she said that. In the end, it's almost like a football game where in the end, back in the day when the Lions would lose a close game on a bad call from the refs, and they'd say, if only, but they also didn't play a great game. And so I think there's so many reasons. But I think here in Detroit, it's really going to be who can put together an effective campaign. And I'm not that familiar. Look, none of them have run citywide campaigns. So, although, I mean, maybe
Sheffield.
did she run at large?
Did she run? No.
She's
She
the
did.
5th district. Yeah. So I mean,
she didn't. She didn't.
it's a harder, it's a bigger lift to do a citywide campaign. And so we'll see.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we are fooling ourselves into thinking that a person has not been tapped already. You know, Mike Duggan was tapped long before 2013. So let's not fool ourselves on that. The business community has already tapped who they're going to get behind. You have Dennis Archer being rumored to get into the campaign. You have Solomon Kinlock. You have Joe Tate. But right now, my betting money is on Chantel Jenkins because she is already in tune with the business community with the Thaw Foundation. So again, we're fooling ourselves into thinking that, you know, there has not been any backdoor meetings already in place. He didn't just come out of the blue and say he was not running. They knew he was not running, and they have already been planning on who they want to tap for that position.
Yeah.
Didn't I say that there was some optics that went on at the NAACP and what I thought was going on? And I agree with you, Eric. I agree.
Hey, is anybody?
But we don't know. Ultimately, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. But yeah.
It's a battle royale. It's going to be 100 people jumping in the race.
100.
People that don't have money, people just want to put their name on the fucking ballot. Listen, it's going to be chaos. But whoever organized their campaign right and get out front and talk about the issues, because the bill is going to be due sooner or later. You know, everybody feel good, and you know, the bankruptcy paved the way for Detroit to get on a comeback. But somebody's going to have to make some tough decisions, going to have to lay off some more folks and rebuild a school system if they're going to attract more people to move into the city. I'm just want to ask this question: who's going to live in all these places that they build in downtown and Porktown and all these other towns?
I think they seem to be filling them up. But
that's not true. That's absolutely not true.
Okay.
Alan, I'm telling you, that is not true. That place next door to me.
That
place next door to me.
Yeah,
20% occupancy.
Well, it takes a while sometimes, but who knows? But
who's paying $2,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment?
When I came back here, Canfield, the ones next to the Avalon Bakery in 2011, they couldn't sell any of them. They were selling like 13 out of I don't know how many, and they were going for like 150,000. Now they're going for 400, 500,000, and I think they've sold them all. But I was going to say, and correct, maybe you can put some context in this. Duggan, during his announcement that he wasn't running, had said he's going to leave the city with a $500 million surplus. Is that bullshit, or is that real, or what's?
Well, that can be real. Rainy day fund. Listen, I'm not. Duggan is good at stats and shit, and I'm not saying that the city is in better shape than what it has been in the last 30, 40 years. But let's be honest with ourselves. The school system is fucked up. We have lost all these kids. We still got a lot of crime. And the new police chief, our friend Todd Bettison, former deputy mayor, said his priorities, Jim, you former chief, is to tackle crime. He said crime and traffic. Is that on the right road?
Well, let's start here. I think first one of our viewers, if there's anybody out there watching, let us know you're watching. Please communicate with us and participate. First of all, and somebody said this last week, Adolph, you can address this a little bit later. They were talking about nobody knew what it was like behind the scenes with Coleman Young, and I hope you can address that before we leave today, what it was like behind the scenes with Coleman Young. But we have a viewer, a friend of ours, a friend of the show, that talked about pensions And let's talk about pensions and healthcare. So you talk about the liability, right? To get people to come to your community, to get talent, you have to offer the pay and benefits, right? So it's very difficult. You know, over the last 20, 30 years, the police department suffered because people would come there 2, 3, 4 years and they'd go, I'm going to Sterling Heights. I can make $70,000 base versus $50,000 base, and I'm going to have healthcare for the rest of my life. Those are challenges that Detroit, that's still on the table, I think. If you look at pensions, and people that were shortchanged, they need to address those pensions. You can't just walk away from people, and healthcare is another bigger issue. But when you talk about crime, whether it's traffic's a big deal. Crime is a big deal, right? You have to bring people to your community, but they can't just come to downtown. They need to be at 6 Mile and Gratiot too. The police have to be patrolling Greenfield and the West Side, and that's a big challenge.
And one thing Adolph just brought up that people are not paying attention to is education. There was a list. There was a list that came out today of the 15 worst behaved schools in the state.
Yep.
2 of the best schools in the city of Detroit, Cass and King, were 1 and 2. So if your best schools have a behavioral problem, what makes people think you want to put these kids in these schools?
Now, Eric, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you, Eric. Is that because I saw that and I read some of the comments and I was like, here we go.
Well, I didn't read the comments.
People got all off subject, right?
Right.
I went to that school or whatever. But I noticed that those schools that was listed were all schools listed in urban, black
communities,
urban areas.
All 15 of them, including the charter schools.
And Adolph talked about the education system. The behavior is one part, but let's talk about the education system. Listen, if I was a younger woman and married, had children, my kids would not go to DPS as it stands today. It just would not happen. But
it's not just Detroit. The Ann Arbor School District had a school board meeting on the 13th, which was Wednesday. They talked about the test results that came out way back in August. Out of 84 public comments, not a single person addressed the pathetic scores of the black students, which were the worst by far of the school district. So again, when people don't care about education and you don't have people
but it ain't a black and white thing, it's an American thing, because there's so many white kids that can't read and write. They just as stupid as some of these other folks.
We're talking about Detroit.
So don't throw it all on that one group.
No, we know.
Education is broken in this country. And
it's not on blacks. My point is the lowest scores from K through 12 in the city of Ann Arbor was with the black kids, not the international kids, not the Hispanics, not the refugees from Ukraine.
What are they gonna do about it, Eric? You can throw stats all over the place.
If people are not talking about it, that means that they will continue to marginalize a demographic group when people don't talk about it. If people choose to just say that's the way it is, that becomes the expectation. That's why you will continue to have a poor school district when it comes to urban communies.
Well, when you have a superintendent that don't send his kids to the school district that he is in charge of, he sends a message that it's screwed up.
So
if you got to teach, go ahead.
To your point, Adolph, we started off talking about the city of Detroit, the new mayor, and you said one of the issues is, you talked about 2 issues. One, the bill is coming due, and 2, you talked about the education system in Detroit. That's what we're talking about. So again, who, as you said, who's going to live in all these new buildings and everything? It certainly is not nobody that have kids and plan on sending their kids to DPS.
Well, you got people that's going to come. You're gonna have people come here and stay here. When they have a family, they're gonna move away. Let's take a break and come back and continue this conversation.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, The probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
In the heart of Detroit, Bruce Simpson. Our city ombudsman and his team are dedicated to making your voice heard. The City of Detroit Ombudsman is a liaison between the City of Detroit and all persons who have a complaint or inquiry into the operation of a city department or the conduct of a city employee. The Ombudsman works as an independent oversight to provide individuals with an opportunity of giving a confidential avenue to address complaints. You can reach the Ombudsman's office at 313-224-6000 or email us at ombudsmandetroitmi.gov. You can also visit us at the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center. For more information, go to www.detroitmi.gov and type in Ombudsman. We are here to help. In Detroit, we are all one team. When you win, we all win.
I love teaching others because when I first got into the healthcare field, people overlooked me. I was really a ninth grade dropout who had no education, but I was determined to make something of myself for my baby. So Motor City matched the funds I put into my business. They awarded me $20,000. So now I'm able to focus solely on first step healthcare training and give it everything it needs. All because I live in Detroit.
Welcome back to Detroit in Black and White, our Friday edition. Allan Lengel, Jim Nardone, Eric Brown, and Vanessa Moss. My one question I want to put out there: whoever win the mayor's race, I know 30, 40, 50 years ago, Coleman Young say the city should control the school district, and he got slapped around and said no. They don't. Who do they answer to? It's a free fall. You had 200,000 kids at one time, and now you got less than what, 40?
No, you got about 50,000 right now.
Right. And listen, you said, who do they answer to? Listen,
yes.
Citizens don't act like they're interested. That we don't hold people, the constituents do not hold people accountable. So, if the system is not, if the system is failing our kids, it's because we allow it to happen. And when I say we allow, we continue to put people in those positions and don't demand that they live up to our expectations. And don't demand accountability. So that's the issue. And let me add one more thing. I'm just going to stir the pot a little bit. Why are they still counting votes in the city of Detroit?
Why? Because there's always been a fucked up system.
There could be
Go ahead,
Alan.
It messed up systems. That's another system.
You know what? There could be military votes or whatever. So votes that came in on time, but then whatever, or stamped at the post office at the right date. Whatever.
It's not going to change anything unless we find about 100,000 votes.
Trump won by 80,000.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the point that I talked to someone who said, you won't believe we're still counting and it's really messed up.
Oh, really?
Again, we're talking about accountability. I don't understand how people continue to have their positions and
people elect them. Go ahead, Alan.
I was going to say I agree with Adolph in terms of, look, if Duggan was ahead of the schools, there'd be more pressure on him to make sure that the schools were run. Nobody, half the people don't know who the superintendent is, even less know who the school board members are, but people know who the mayor is. And the mayor, I think it should, the city council should be trying to figure out a way how to change that. So it's the mayor's responsibility ultimately, because nobody, I think it has to be a high-profile person who can live or die by one of those elements there, which is such a key component of this city is education, and we kind of brush it off and push it to the side, and
well, there's a national story where students at Central High in Little Rock, historical Little Rock, Arkansas. They walked off the schools because they said that the state of Arkansas spent about 20-30 million on private schools, basically for other kids to go to. Now, you go and look at Grosse Pointe. You got parents over there that don't even want to send their kids to Grosse Pointe South and Grosse Pointe North because they saying, oh, the schools are terrible. Man, what do that say about districts like Detroit and Ecorse and Southfield, Oak Park? You name Melvindale, you name some of these places. I'm telling you, education is should be a priority in this mayor's race. And that should be that should be 1A or 1B. It should be up there. If I was running a campaign, if I was running for mayor, I said, give me control of the schools. Let me run it. Then you got somebody, if I fuck up, you can beat up on me. But who can we beat up on when you give a superintendent, you pay him $400,000 or $300,000 and he's not producing?
Well, you also,
run for shit.
With the school district, you also have elected school board members that fail to understand that they hire and fire the superintendent, not the other way around. Remember, 2 years ago, he said that there were 3 people running for re-election. He stated, the superintendent stated that if they were not re-elected, he would look for another place of employment. I would have been like, deuces, bruh. I would let you know, come on.
Wait a minute. He was looking for a job down in Texas.
And
not just Texas, no. Chicago as well. Chicago as well. And they said no.
No.
Oh, speaking of Chicago, Adolph, you have the superintendent in Chicago, a black woman, that not only did not send her son to the school district, Chicago, she stated the reason why she didn't send him there. She the superintendent. She said that she knew her son would not get the quality education in the Chicago school district, and she still has her job. How can the superintendent say something like that?
Well, let me ask you this. That's the same thing that the superintendent is doing here. His kids don't go to PSD. Why?
Well, the people, to your point, Vanessa, they don't hold them accountable. Because there's no way a superintendent should be able to say that my kids, the school district that I run is not good enough for my kids. You don't need to be the superintendent.
Let me ask you.
Or as a parent, do you look out for your kids and what's in the best interest of your kids and say, hey,
well, don't take the damn paycheck.
Somewhere else.
Don't take the damn paycheck.
So you should do a good enough job. You should do a good enough job that you want to send your kids to your district. If you can't do that good of a job, then you need to get the hell out of town.
I swear.
I'm sorry.
I don't disagree with you guys, but this is the thing. The constituents in the city are not talking about this. They're not holding him or the board.
Well, somebody. We're going to have a guest tomorrow, the newly elected school board member that we had on just before the election. And that's the question we should ask her. Allan, quickly.
I have a quick question, and you could probably best answer it. What would it take to change? Do they have to change the constitution or the charter of Detroit to put the school district under the mayor? Is that
well, they have changed the charter several times. And listen, it don't take a rocket scientist to figure this shit out. You know what? If you're going to make this a world-class city, where you get world-class people that bring in little kids that can go across the street and go to a school and in their neighborhoods like it used to be, where you can walk to school, you gotta have to think outside the box. And if we're gonna elect the mayor,
and you're gonna have the right person in that position to do that. You're gonna have the right person elected as mayor. You're gonna have to make those changes, and they're going to have to not only demand, make people accountable.
Well, Okay, Lengel, your final thought. Go
I
ahead,
was
quick.
going to say, one of the things when somebody from General Motors or whatever, somebody in the tech world, Silicon Valley gets hired by GM and they bring them here. If they have family, the selling point is the suburbs in Detroit are great. You'll love Birmingham, Bloomfield, Grosse Pointe. If you're a young hipster, they'll say, oh, there's cool places in the city. But if you have a family, that's the selling point. Bloomfield Hills has great schools, and that's a problem that we still haven't gotten to that point where we say we have great schools. You should be coming.
Jim, final thought.
It's the ineffective use of our resources. When you talk about some schools that are performing very well, we need to do better. And Vidi, is that his name, has a $1.1 billion budget. If you can't educate your own kids with a $1.1 billion budget, I think it's he needs to leave town. He needs to fix the system, and his kids need to participate in the system.
Eric,
I'm going to piggyback on what you said, Adolph. If I was running for mayor, the center point of my campaign would be education and taking over the school district.
Vanessa. Of no city in the country that city government is involved in running a school system.
No, New York,
Chicago. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
By our conversation, I would say Vidi didn't get that job in Texas because of the poor job that he's doing here in the city of Detroit. But my final thought is this: we will be back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock a.m. for another spirited conversation with Detroit in Black and White. If you're watching, like, subscribe, and share. Join us tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock and make sure you make your comments. Have a good night.
Well, I don't get a final thought, huh? You rushing me. You rushing me.
Go ahead.
That's why we're gonna mute you tomorrow. Take 10 seconds off. It's a 10-second runoff. It's a 10-second runoff. Bye, Vanessa. And don't be wearing those glasses.
We're too early, Adolph. You have to say something. I want to hear about behind closed doors with Coleman Young. Somebody said nobody knew what it was like behind closed doors with Coleman Young. I want to hear what it was like.
Me and many others who's still around in the city, we know what it was like. They whoever said it, they want to know. Tune in tomorrow. I'll tell you what it was like.
All right.
Good night.
Everybody have a good night. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everybody.